Yes, a very warm welcome to all of you, whatever you might be tuning in. Welcome to KDRTV Live. We are live. It's 6 p.m. Central Time. And we're very delighted to have you on this evening when we continue our conversation around driving a very positive diaspora narrative. So tonight we're going to engage in yet another interesting topic, and as you see there on the screen, we're going to talk about community leadership and partnership in driving the positive diaspora narrative. I think this is a very important topic for us to tackle, given that in the last few months, or at least the better part of this year, we've been going through very difficult times, not as a community, but as a global community. So because of that, we thought here at KDRTV, we should form a platform from which we, especially the immigrants, can have a chance to talk and share experiences, and in addition to connecting professionally as we try to move forward the agenda of a diaspora community. So today we start this conversation. We're hoping to involve pretty much every nation from across Africa. Today we're going to start with three members of the African, three leaders from the African community. In particular, we're going to start with a representative from the Kenyan community here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. We're also going to have a representative from the Ugandan community, and also very honored today, we're going to have a representative from the Cameroonian community here in the Twin Cities. So I'm going to bring them on the screen and so to introduce them here.
Maya,
from we are live. So from the left, that is Lydia Kayongo, a good friend of mine, who is going to carry the Ugandan flag. So you can know that she's at home trying to take care of things, at the same time trying to engage the community. So good to have you on, Lydia. Also to my right is my younger brother, Walter Dokma. I have a difficult time pronouncing that name. He's the president of the Cameroonian Association here in the Twin Cities, or in Minnesota for that case. And then joining us momentarily will be Hulda Momanyi Hitsfa. She's the president of the largest Kenyan organization here in the Twin Cities. So she's joining in as she works on the technical part of it. So I want to start off here by having them introduce themselves, and I want to start with the ladies first. Let's begin with you, Lydia. How are you, by the way? Before you even introduce yourself, may I say that you look fantastic.
Dr. Okari. And thank you so much for hosting us, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to come and share our thoughts on the communities that we serve and the community that we are very much proud to be a part of. My name is Lydia Naroga Kayongo. I have resided in the Uganda Minnesota community for over 20 years, and I have served in different roles in the community as a volunteer, but most recently I have been the president of the Uganda Association of Minnesota, and I continue to serve in different aspects of the community. Right now I'm serving as a president of the Uganda Women Empowerment in Minnesota. So we are a group of women that come together to share ideas and support each other through networking and enriching our lives through community activities. So I'm very happy to be a part of this forum so that we can share ideas and find solutions on how we can better serve our communities. Thanks so much.
So good to have you again. As I said moments ago, Lydia will be carrying the Ugandan flag on the show tonight. Also, my brother Walter, can you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Thank you so much, Dr. Okari, for bringing me onto this show. My name is Walter Dobgimer, and like he has already mentioned, I am the president of the Minnesota Cameroon community. And now let me just take a little bit and talk a little bit about our communities. If you've ever heard of MINCAM, that stands for Minnesota Cameroon Community, and there are about 5,000 Cameroonians in the Twin Cities. And the way MINCAM is made up of, we have a whole lot of different cultural associations and alumni associations that make together the organization. That means MINCAM is like an umbrella organization of all these cultural and alumni association, because as you know, we come from Africa where we have all the different tribes and stuff. So MINCAM is kind of like the umbrella organization. I was just recently elected the president of the organization, so this role is pretty new. However, I have been pretty involved in building our community. So community building is not something that is new to me. And just like our community go through challenges, I am sure all the African communities in the diaspora does as well. So I am delighted to be here tonight to exchange ideas so that we can better build and grow our communities. Thank you.
Good to have you on, Watson, and definitely you're very eloquent, and talking to you in private, you're a smart guy, and I'm sure the Cameroonian community should be very proud of you, and I'm sure you go way forward. So guys, before we even start, and I just received a text message here, Hulda will be joining us momentarily. Let's begin with the obvious. Around the world today, people are talking about COVID-19. So let me begin from you individually, and how you're dealing with it, and if you don't mind, give us a quick perspective of how your community is dealing with it. And I'm going to start with you, Lydia.
I think that all communities, Uganda is no exception with dealing with COVID. Some people in our communities have been affected directly with COVID, and we have a lot of healthcare workers that are in the front lines serving our elderlies and serving in the hospitals, and different professionals that are dealing directly with it. So we thank God that currently we do not have any Ugandans in Minnesota that have died from the COVID, but we have had several people that have been affected with COVID. But what has made it very powerful with COVID is that the unit that has come as a result of it. So a lot of resources have been shared, a lot of togetherness, a lot of people coming together to help those who have been affected by COVID. So we are very, very proud of our community and how they have circled behind each other to make sure that we are in it together and we are fighting the fight together. So whether it's with prayers, providing resources, visiting the ones that are sick at home, and helping out the families that are at home, they have really helped and made it much better to deal with.
It's good to hear, Lydia, especially knowing that my love and appreciation for the Ugandan community is an open secret, and I think pretty much part of it. So good to hear that, and KDRTV sending its very best to the community. Hopefully things go on as well as this at the moment. So how is it for you, Walton, within the Cameroonian community?
Well, as you know, the pandemic has presented a very challenging situation for all communities, and the Cameroon community is actually really no exception. As you know, parents have tended to be teachers. We've had kids stay longer hours at homes, not really having places to go to, and we have kind of tried, to look for other ways to entertain these kids at home, and it has just been stressful. And the COVID really actually at one point did hit the Cameroon community. And that is because people at one point in time got tired after staying home for so long and started having like little home parties and barbecue parties. A lot of people were affected, contracted the virus. Luckily, we did not have any deaths. I only know of one person, elderly person within our community that actually died of COVID-19. So we are thankful, and what I want to tell people is that please don't let your guards down yet. The virus is still very live and is still out there, and let us continue to follow the guidelines that is provided to us by the medical professionals.
Walter, and by the way, for viewers, Walter works in a hospital and is calling in from a hospital. So, and I think we need to take his words very seriously as well. Walter, I have a lot of Cameroonian friends. So KDRTV also extends appreciation to the community and, of course, to you as a frontline worker. Just take good care of yourselves. So, guys, let's get to the conversation, the main gist of the conversation. Now, for a long time, we've been talking about negativity. It's not very good things going on in our community. But I think we got to a time where we also need to start talking about the positives. But before then, let's quickly have a quick look at some of the challenges facing these communities or individual communities. And from you, Lydia, I know you've done extremely good work with the Ugandan women community. But overall, what are some of the challenges that the Ugandan community face here in the diaspora?
The biggest issue for me that I see that our communities are facing is unity. And with unity, it just takes all of us to come together and combine our efforts and our resources and skills in order to grow our community. And sometimes that is lacking in our communities, whether it's connecting Ugandan community to Kenyan community, Cameroon, all those other communities that are out there. I feel that we do not have enough of that unity to empower us to form those strong bonds so that we can be able to work collectively and address the issues that are affecting our community. So when we have an issue that is affecting the Ugandan community, you find that it's the same issue that may be across the board in all the other migrant communities. And so with the communities not having that bond so that we can share resources, it really takes us behind and takes us longer to find the solutions to our problems. So that is one of the strongest things that I think that we need to work very hard on to enforce those partnerships within other communities, because some communities are much stronger than other immigrant communities. You may find that the Somalian community may have more resources because they are tapping into a group sharing process or system that they have, whether it's through entrepreneurship, through education, getting scholarships and things like that. And the Cameroon community may have some strong aspects of its community, whether it's through sports initiatives and things like that. So if each community shares their resources with each other, we'll find that we'll forge a better way forward so that we don't leave any particular immigrant community behind.
With you for a moment, you're talking about a lack of unity. Do you know any specific reason why you don't have that unit within the community that you want to share?
I think the unities within the community is coming, the community itself may be strong with individuals. But when it comes outside to sharing information and resources with different communities, that is what is lacking, because you don't find a lot of events that are hosted that are intercommunal, where you find an event that is hosted at involving Ugandans, Kenyans, Tanzanians, all those other communities. You find that a Ugandan community hosts events that are geared towards only Ugandans, and then Kenyans have their own events, and Nigerians and Liberians. So there is that cluster formation that does not enable us to go outside our comfort zone, where we can share resources as immigrants in the diaspora, because all these issues are affecting us in general. So when we are talking about issues that are affecting Ugandan community, like resource sharing, if a Ugandan does not have the resources within that community, you may find that maybe in Kenyan community, those resources are there. So it's as simple as if we open ourselves up as communities and invite other immigrants from different countries to join us in tackling the same issues, we'll come to the solutions much faster.
Very good. Thank you for sharing those insights, Lydia. So let's see from the Cameroonian community. I know, Walter, you are new in the office, but not new in the community. And of course, you're up to the challenges. But what are some of the challenges really that the Cameroonian community here in the diaspora is facing?
Well, I want to touch base a little bit on what Lydia said about community unity. That is actually an issue that the Cameroon community is actually facing at this time. Our community right now is so fragmented that is one of the most important thing that I am trying to do at this time, trying to rebuild our community by going out there and talking to the different groups. At the end of the day, we are all one. As you know, they say in leadership, collaboration is the key to build strong teams, and that goes for the same thing in trying to build our communities. If we cannot come together and rebuild these communities, we cannot grow. We cannot grow. So I think building networks will be very important for us to grow in this society that we live in. Like Lydia has just said, I don't think that there's collaboration between our various African communities, and we need to start working as a team to be able to, if like, for example, say the Cameroon community, if there is something that they know better than the Kenyan community, they can reach out to the community and vice versa. Until we start doing that, then we will not really be able to be successful in this country. Now, if I want to talk a little bit about leadership within our communities, I think that we do lack genuine leadership within our communities. Sometimes people that are our leaders do not really go out there and seek resources that will benefit your people. And for example, I'm going to use myself as an example. So if you're not able to, as a leader, if you're not able to provide resources to the people that you're leading that will engage them, you cannot have unity. And I think that as leaders, we need to be able to go out there and look for resources that will benefit from our children all the way to our parents that might be living with us. That way, we're keeping our communities engaged.
Okay. Very good. Oh, yeah. So that means we have an addition to the panel, and that Hulda Momanyi Hitzler. She's the representing or carrying the flag of Kenya on the show. But first, I want to introduce her, and obviously I've been receiving text messages. She's been caught somewhere, so to our viewers, apologies. And Hulda, quickly, we're into this. Do you mind quickly introducing yourself? And on the same note, in 2 minutes, let us know what are some of the challenges facing the Kenyan community here in the diaspora.
Absolutely. Dr. Okari, thank you so much for having me on the program tonight alongside the guest speakers, these wonderful leaders from the various African communities within Minnesota. So it's a privilege to be in this conversation. So again, my name is Hulda Momanyi Hiltsley. I am the president of Mwanyegetinge organization here in Minnesota, and we cater to the needs and challenges of the Kenyan community members here in the Twin Cities and in Minnesota. And we do have members outside of Minnesota, but mostly it's members in Minnesota. And Dr. Okari, you have asked about the challenges that the Kenyan community faces. I can only imagine some of the challenges that that the other community members have noted. We face very similar challenges as we all come from the continent of Africa. So anything that really affects the immigrant community affects all of us across the board. But specifically for the Kenyan community is that unity aspect, coming together and realizing we have the power to create the change that we want to see governmental wise, because Kenyans are very hardworking people, but we have not harnessed that power of unity, because if we can come together as a community and say, hey, this is what we want to see happen, instead of, focusing on this individual, and I understand that because we have to work and provide for our families, but there is this power in unity. So that's one of the challenges that I see within the Kenyan community. Another one is lack of knowledge in terms of resources. There's so much resources out there from various nonprofits, government resources that we, the Kenyan community, haven't really tapped on. And the goal for this team, this Mwanyegetinge executive team and the board, is to really harness those resources and bring them into our community. And then lastly, it's this challenge of how do we balance the cultural aspect of our people. Me being the young person who grew up here, I came to the States when I was 9. I'm seeing a lot of culture fading away, and having the young people growing up in this country and really going off and doing their their own thing. So I'm seeing our culture slowly fading away. And so one of the biggest challenge for us is how do we, create this balance between, the current society and the current environment we live in, but at the same time maintain who we are, and our roots and our culture.
Very well articulated, and I think as I listen to the three of you, I think the themes pretty much are the same, and that's the essence of us having these kind of conversations. But even before I go further, the three of you, I want to say congratulations. I think deciding to serve the public is a rare thing in such a difficult environment. So please accept my appreciation. What you're doing is not just for you or your family, but it's something you're doing for our communities. So at the position of leadership, surely, of course, there's much we need to do. And the viewers are watching this. So let's look at, yes, we can talk about the negatives, and there will continue to be challenges in the community. But as leaders, let's look at how we can focus on solving some of those challenges. Let's begin with one that has been, clearly the three of you agree on the fact that there's a lack of unity, right? So again, as I said in the intro there, we at KDRTV, part of what we're trying to do is to have a platform where not just Kenyans, but all communities across Africa in the diaspora can come on here and share our experiences. Because WCC or CNN, Fox News won't hear us, they won't really communicate. But by having this platform, we believe we can do this. So let's begin with unit. As best as you can tell, Lydia, how can we resolve this problem of unit so that we can pull our resources together?
Again, to just echo about what Huda was talking about, I really appreciate the fact that when we come together as leaders in our communities, when we are hearing that we are facing the same challenges, it's really an opportunity for us to open up those dialogues more so that we can hear each other and solve the problems collectively. Because if it's the same problem across the board, then that means that it's going to take a collective effort from each and every one of our communities to come together and say, what do you know and what do I know and how can we solve it? So it's about reaching out, not being afraid to reach out outside what your comfort zone is, reaching out to people who from a different background, who speak a different language, who are from a different country, inviting them on the same table to have this dialogue. So the platform that we are having right now is a start for us to say that, okay, we know the problems are there and the problems are affecting us collectively. How can we address them? So we start with the talk. After we're done talking, we start having the solutions that we can be able to implement. So if we are having activities, making sure that we are inclusive and so that people feel that they are invited into another community. They feel the opportunities to come in and share and be part of the bigger picture. So I think that it's very important for us to recognize that as a community, coming from different backgrounds, if we collectively come together and invite each other in our different spaces and say that, okay, I'm Ugandan, but I feel very comfortable going to a Kenyan community or a Somalian community and learning from them, or them coming and learning from us, so that we can be able to solve the problems. I think that is very key.
I'm going to have you build on to what Lydia is saying. It's unity. In our private conversation, it's the fact that most of our community members, they lack the willingness or commitment to engage, and they do so for various reasons. The point that they don't want to share that sometimes is for hidden reasons, which, if shared, actually you realize that they're pretty much the same problems. How do you then resolve that problem? Make people be willing to share their views or sentiments or disbeliefs so that we can create a common narrative.
So can I let me touch base a little bit on something that what's the other lady's name? Anyways, that the other host said, I forgot the name. I think there is some cultural, I don't know if I should really tell me the cultural aspect to this. I think it's a mindset issue. I know that a lot of Africans, and I think you guys will agree with me, that a lot of Africans do not share information sometimes for the reason they will think like, if I share something with you, you're going to be better than me. But one thing that I want my fellow brothers to know is that we should always have this mindset that together we are stronger. And if we work as a team, like I've said previously, that is the only time that we can grow. We need to educate. I just think it's a matter of education. If you look at the communities that are doing well, they work together. Look at our Asian brothers. Look at the Jews. They work together, and that is why they are thriving. Until we just need to change that mindset and come together and work together and grow. And that is why I talked about building networks. And it should not only end within our communities. When we're able to succeed to build our communities, then we extend these to other African communities within the diaspora. And that is the only how I just think that we need to start by changing that mindset, and it takes it to some education.
Walter, so I'm not sure we have Ulda. Do we still have Ulda? I think she's working on the technical part of it. So let's talk about the genuine community leadership, Lydia, as we wait for Ulda to join us again. I mean, look, when I was a young man, I went to history class, and in the history class, I was told of African students who came to the U.S., and during that time, they formed African Student Association because they had a common enemy to go back to Africa and fight for independence. So almost 60 years later, it's interesting that all that we have, we cannot even come together to talk common stories. So how do we, going forward, Lydia, how do we create genuine community leadership so that we eliminate this sense of distrust that happens amongst us?
I think that the way we can create that is through community centers. For instance, we Africans love to socialize. That is how we get to know each other. That is how we speak a common language. You can go to a Kenyan party and feel right at home because you are the food, the culture around the food, around the gathering, around that commonality is just so common to us, and it comes so natural, but we lack a common venue or a common place for us to gather our thoughts or to feel that this is where we belong, because we don't have a community center. For instance, I know that the Cameroonians have a community center, but many of our communities are lacking that. Every time we are trying to host an independence party or independence gala or cultural activities, we have to go somewhere else and work on the terms of the venues and the locations that we rent. But if we had our own community center where it's an African community center, it's open to all cultures, it's open to all communities, people can feel free to come and go and learn. It's like an African museum where you can hang your African flag, the Ugandan flags and Kenyans, and all our flags are in there, and you have a sense of belonging. It can create that togetherness and collaboration, and it can make us feel that we belong. Because without that, we come in and every single time you are trying to form a network or an event or do anything, you feel that you do not have a space to call your own. So I think that as community leaders, if we work so hard to do like what our fellow brothers and sisters have done in the Cameroon community and have their own place to call home, if we all collaboratively do something like that, it will empower us to share more and to unite more and come together and feel that we belong somewhere.
I like the way you say that, and I'll get you, Walter. Luckily, I've attended more than enough Ugandan functions, whether it's baby showers, weddings, and eating a lot of matokes and dancing all night. I have enjoyed that, and I appreciate that openness within the Ugandan community. As well, the Cameroonians, I have a lot of Cameroonian friends. The only problem I have is that maybe I'm unlucky. All those Cameroonian parties begin at 2 in the morning. So,
yes.
But those parties end up. I like the way Cameroonian, by the way, I love Cameroonians. The guys are very nice, they're very expressive, they enjoy life to the max. So it's a good thing. So, and congratulations to the community, the Cameroonian community for having that community center. So, Walter, to you, how then do we really remove that fear of one another so that we come together, or can the Cameroonian take the lead, invite us to your community center to have a party?
Oh, definitely we can. And I really want to say that having that community center has been one of our pride, and not just for for the communities locally, but it has been our pride to other Cameroonian communities across the United States. And I do think, I mean, granted, we've had our own challenges with the community center, but it still remains our most admired asset that we have. And one thing I want to say is great to have a community center, a place that you can gather. But what I want to say is that you do not want to forget about the people. With that center, you have to make sure that you are introducing programs that will engage your community, and that is where that leadership comes in. The parties and all of that are good, but you need to be able to introduce programs, maybe things such as mentorship, introduce job fairs, health fair, personal development initiative, all those things that will bring the community together. Because there is one thing about having a community center, but if you are not careful, you might forget about the people and pay more attention. That is one of the challenges that we've seen with our community center. It seems like all attention went there, and then we forgot about the people. So one thing during my presidency, what I'm trying to introduce or reintroduce is to try to provide programs that will benefit our community.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you for the invitation. As soon as you're ready to invite us, please come back to this forum, and we'll be very happy to make sure every African immigrant in the Twin Cities, we're going to come to that function and enjoy full time. By the way, let's pull back a little bit, point that Hulda made here. Very good point, and I think that's part of the problems we have, balancing the cultural aspects. When you go into our communities, for example, the Ugandan community, whether you are Baganda, Abasoga, or Acholi, there are those divisions within. And then if you go to the Cameroonians, there are also those divisions. Within the Kenyan community as well, there are those tribal differences. But when you look at the big picture, we are here for a common story, and that's to achieve the American dream. When you go to work, it doesn't matter who you're working with. You're just a brother from Africa. When you suffer, it's the same fate. How do we resolve that problem? Because really with the community center, it means that our children and grandchildren will not be perceived as, belong to those specific small groups, but they'll be seen as a larger group of immigrants. So to you, Lydia, how do we resolve that cultural imbalance in a foreign country?
I think that we all have to take ownership of that. And as immigrants in this country, we have to take ownership of that. Just like the way other immigrant communities, like the Chinese and the Hmong and the Somalians have taken ownership to their culture. We gotta get the pride back. Just the way I'm a Ugandan proud woman, I have to take that ownership. I have to take that ownership and pass it down to my children. I have to be intentional when I'm speaking my language to my children. I have to make it start from my home. Because as a leader, when I come into the community and I introduce an initiative of us learning our languages or introducing the traditional dances, if the child has not been taught to be proud of who they are right from the home, I cannot be able to teach them how to dance traditional dances. I have done a program before in our community where we are teaching the children our national anthem. We're teaching the children how to dance the Chiganda dance, the Chisoga dance. And majority of these children are very interested and curious to know, and they want to learn, and they are very eager. But at the end of it, when we are done teaching them the programs, we need them to go home and carry it forward. Now, if they go home and the parent is not fostering that, it's not going to go anywhere. So as a community, as immigrant people, we need to go back to our roots. We need to appreciate what our grandparents and parents told us, and we need to pass it forward, because only and only then will our culture survive. Only and only then will we able to move on the torch and be able to carry it forward, because the kid is not going to come to you and say, I just want to know about your country, if you're not proudly wearing it on your sleeve, if you're not proudly telling your children about the stories about your origin, about what makes you proud. Because America makes us more of who we are as we grow up, but we don't forget where we came from. Our past comes with us, and that is the beauty of culture. But how we move it forward is a responsibility that every immigrant has to carry, and we have to carry it intentionally. And as we are building these community programs, and we as leaders are saying, come bring your children to me, let me teach them more, let me provide this environment, or let me provide this community center for you to come and learn how to do the drums and how to wear the African culture. We have to also make the parents know that it's a group effort and it's a community effort, that we can be able to carry on our culture forward.
Walter, leaders make a very good point, and the point is around culture. I teach, and every time I talk to my students and we're talking about culture, culture is basically a way of life by a group of people at a particular place. But you cannot fully define culture unless you also say culture in an aspect of time. Culture is not static, it's dynamic, meaning that even though we come from different countries across Africa, we have an opportunity here to set up a culture for our children and grandchildren. 50, 100 years from now, our children will care less about which country we came from, Africa. They'll talk about we as the first generation immigrants. On that note, Walter, and in all seriousness, how then do we reconcile these simple differences, really? And I think to your point, if you notice within the communities, for example, intermarriages, today is not uncommon to see Ugandans marry Cameroonians, Cameroon marry Nigerians, and children within all these parties. It's not uncommon. So how do we balance that cultural aspect so that we really talk as a diasporian community? Walter.
So, like I said before, I described MINCAM. I was the structure of MINCAM a little bit before. MINCAM is an umbrella organization of different cultural associations within the metro area here. So every summer, once a year, we have a cultural events where all these different cultural associations come together and display their culture. We share food, and it's a 3-day event. We invite our kids and other communities that are not necessarily from Cameroon to come see our culture. I think that Lydia talked a little bit about that. Doing such things, that is how our kids learn. And of course, like you said, culture is not static. It will be a change over time, but at least that will give our kids a sense of belonging, or to know where your roots is actually from. When they see us dressed in the different traditional regalia, playing the drum, something which they have not really experienced firsthand, it creates a different picture in their mind, and they just love doing that. I remember one time that my dad was here and I brought him to one of these events. My dad said, if you guys have all this over here, what's the point? What's the point? I don't see why you guys want to come back to Africa. So those are some of the things that we are already doing, but we cannot do it enough. We just cannot do it enough to keep to to keep things going?
As I said in the intro there, coronavirus has really changed the way we do things, not as individuals, but communities, businesses, and countries around the world. And I think there's an increasingly acceptance that those of us who are first generation immigrants, this is going to be our home, and our story probably will end here, and our children will pick up from here. So I think it's good to start this conversation. By the way, for our viewers, if you have any question, post the question there. We'll be able to put them for the panelists. And Hulda is trying to log in. Please apologize, she's not able to get in, but if she does, that's fine. We'll have her next time. So we apologize for that matter. So guys, before we finish, let's talk about an interesting subject that also I think Geoffrey brought up in our private conversations, and that's around civil engagement. And I think I noticed that some of the points we are talking about is that we lack programs, lack of information. But we're not going to get information if we're not on the table. That's what it is. We can sit in our living rooms, talk morning to evening, but unless we're on the decision-making tables, we are not going to have that. Hulda, are you there for us? Okay,
I am.
Okay, so are you there? Is it Hulda there?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I know you're having a hard time. I know it's she's been having meetings all day and having that problem. So I know you've been following us from that. Do you want to add on to how we resolve some of those problems that we are talking about? Part of it being culture. You talk about culture. How do we really strike a good balance so that we don't necessarily talk about we Cameroonians, we Nigerians, South Africans, or Ugandans? So where we begin talking a story about we, the children of Africa. How do we balance that?
So I believe I heard one of the leaders talk about collaboration within the different countries and within the different organizations that represent the different countries. For me, I think that's the key because a lot of us, Mr. Walter, I think mentioned earlier, something about, this African mentality of I do not want to share information and what I have is mine. And growing up here and really working in corporate America and seeing how, this collaboration and this sharing of information really, propels an organization or propels, this country forward. That's where we need to also have that mind shift, like Mr. Walter said. So from my perspective, I think collaboration within these different organizations, the different community members is critical. A good example is that I was late because I was in a board meeting for our organization, Mwenyegetinge. And today we actually invited one of the executive director of the Organization for Librarians in Minnesota, because when we were looking around and seeing, who is doing what out here within our community that is from, the African continent, we noticed that, the librarian community is very strong and is united and it's getting resources into their, community. And so, with the help of Mr. Chewy, and that connection, I invited Mr. Kamati, the executive director for Organization Librarian in Minnesota, to come and really speak to our team and kind of share what are they doing, what is working, what's not working, and how can we collaborate together as Africans. And
now, Hulda is not
are seeing
okay.
And wow, I'm just having technical difficulties today.
Okay.
And immediately and talk, hey, how can we come together and share the knowledge for our community? Because when we share that knowledge, we also, can find and come up with ideas that actually address the same issue and challenge that all of us are facing.
One of the aspects of leadership, if you want to be a good leader, and I always tell my students this all the time, you got to have a vision, right? You can't define leadership unless you really look at the vision. And secondly, that you should be able to articulate that vision very well so that the followers can believe in you and follow you. So it's good to talk about these different communities, but we should be in a position today to envision our community 20, 30 years from now. our children may not even remember what Uganda, Kenya is. They will be talking about the children of immigrants. And I think that's where we need to be going. So sorry, Ul, I know it's been problematic for you, but I'm sure we'll bring you back in another segment, hopefully next week. But let's move to the second last topic I was bringing in, and that's about civic engagement. So Geoffrey Joy has been one of those ones leading the community, talking about this serious issue that we can talk about in our dining rooms, in our homes, in our parties, but if we are not on the decision-making table, this will be just mere talk. So how are we engaging in civil activities, running for offices, whether the school boards, whether in town, cities, or Senate? What are your thoughts, Lydia, in that regard?
I think, again, it's about empowering our community members, because we have this idea that we are followers and not leaders. And as immigrants, we put ourselves as second-hand citizens. So we put ourselves much less than our peers, the white people, for lack of a better word. But as immigrants, we feel that we do not put our efforts in it, like in getting involved in the PTO meetings, getting involved in our school activities, so that we can have our voices heard. So we always leave it up to other people to make the decisions on our behalf. And like you said, if we are not part of the decision makers on the table, when we sit around and get our voices heard and make ourselves seen, then all the decisions that are going to be made are not going to be made in our favor. So it's very important as a community to encourage each other and encourage those people who are able to stand, because not everyone can stand for office, but there are people who are capable and they're looking for that affirmation or that support from our communities to say that yes, you can, and to push them forward so they can run for offices, or so they can run for positions that can have influence and therefore can bring back those resources to our communities. Because we lack a lot of people in our communities, a lot of representation. We don't have enough representation. When you look at the boards, whether it's the school boards or you're looking at the Senate, you're looking at the Congress, we do not have a lot of representation from immigrants. Very few people, because we are afraid. We are thinking that we are less than. So it's very important for us to know that we are capable, just as the people who are born here, we are just as capable, because we have the right to run for those offices. We have the resources and we have the knowledge and the determination. And I know that we as immigrants work harder than majority of the people who are born here. So if a person who is born here is giving in a 90%, you better believe that an African immigrant is putting in 200%, because in order for you to feel heard, in order for you to get that presence and that recognition, you're going to work just as hard, twice as hard. So that means that if we were in these positions of influence or leadership or power, that means that we are even going to represent our communities much more vigorously than the people who are representing us right now. So it's about encouraging us and fostering those conversations and telling people that, yes, you can, and actually supporting them through the process.
Well, sounds fantastic. Thank you, Lydia, for those comments. And by the way, apologies, Walter, we kept you longer than necessary. I know you're at work and your team needs you and they need to run. So, Walter, build on to that as you make your closing statement. And as you make that closing statement, can you promise to come back on the show and as well invite us to the Cameroonian function as soon as the corona is ended?
Exactly. As soon as corona is ended and we're able to use that space again, I definitely want you all to come to the Cameroon community and socialize. So, I mean, I'm just going to touch based on what Lydia already said it all. It's all about empowering our people. And most immigrants do not know that. Not engaging with your local government or not running for those positions, whatever decisions that are made at those local level, those are the things that affect our everyday life. A lot of us tend to focus on the national politics. Not that it's not important, they're all important, But what actually affects your day-to-day life is what happens at the local level. So we need to get our people in at the city council, school boards, and you name it, anything local. That is what affects your life. That is what affects your kids' life from your day-to-day. Decisions made at the national, yes, they do affect us, but sometimes they don't. It doesn't matter whether Republican or Democrats in power. So I want to tell people that it is very important for us to be engaged with our communities. I am very engaged in my community, not just the Minkam community. If you come to my city, I'm sure if you ask my name, even to a Caucasian, I'm one of those persons that I'm also big in advocacy and stuff. So please stay engaged. Like Dr. Okari already said, I have to run, but let's encourage our people. We have the skills, we have the knowledge, and I think we just need to make a little bit push for our people to start getting. And I'm starting to see them. We're starting to see some moves, but we're not there yet. We need to do more. So thank you all. Thank you for bringing me to this conversation. I think it was very enriching. And of course, we'll be learning more as time goes on.
Walter, by the way, happy birthday. Enjoy that, and we'll talk to you after the show. Huda, I know you didn't have enough airtime. I'm sure we'll bring you again in the next segment. Build on to that. Sorry, technology does happen, so don't feel bad about it. I'm sure you're going to contribute heavily in the sessions to come. So build on to that, again, about civic engagement. We can be talking about this unless we support our own to get our people on the decision-making table. Some of this stuff will not be helpful. You want to build on to that as well?
Absolutely. So again, Lydia has laid out this great summary of how our communities can engage the local government. And like Walter said, that's where the decisions are made that affect each one of us. A good example is the Somali community. They have figured out how to, come together and really engage the local government to the point where they have a woman in Congress, right? We all claim her because she's African descent, so we are claiming her as a sister. But at the end of the day, the Somali community is the one who really propelled her to that role. And it all comes down to, for me personally, it's knowledge, right? If you don't have the knowledge and understand how it works, how the local government works, what is the scope of these different offices, then you're not going to ask you're not going to be in the position to ask the right questions, to know how to engage. So really, the leaders within our community really need to drive home the part about providing the knowledge and providing information to our community about how these different offices work and what the scope is. When you look at one of the laws that was passed, I don't remember what year, but it's about the cell phone, right? Where there's you can't hold your phone and talk. But if you look at the Somali community, they can put their phone in their headpiece. Excuse me if I don't know the name of the headpiece, and it's okay, it's legal. How did that happen? When I looked into that, I found out that when that decision was being made, the Somali community was on the table. They were like, this right here, we need to have it in, to them, that's a part of, who they are, and they're not able to, obviously, that doesn't constitute, them using their hands. And the point that I'm driving home is that they were at the table, and that's what Lydia said. We have to be at that table to tell them, this is who we are, we're here, and that decision that you're making, it's not, it doesn't apply to us, but when we are there, we can say, hey, this applies to us as well. Another thing that I want to say about civic engagement is that we Africans, yes, we work super hard. And when we walk out the door, we are seen as Africans. As African Americans. For example, my brothers, when they step out there, the police officer is not saying, well, you know what, you are African, so you're different. No, they're seeing as our brothers, our sisters. Anybody, when we walk out there, we're seen as African American. So if we also cannot engage ourselves in this social, aspect of, our communities and what affects, the African American communities in terms of social justice and equality, and we are so caught up in we have to make that dollar and really not engage in that, we're also losing out, because what affects the African American community also affects us. So from that perspective. Lastly, we have to be able to find a way where we can come together and say, as an African community, and say, if we go to the state as a bloc, we have more power to lobby for change. And I was voting the other day, and I noticed, a couple of names that were, Nigerians and Liberians. I didn't see from my community, Brooklyn Center, I didn't see any Kenyans. And then when I was going through, I noticed most of these local offices, nobody was challenging. Nobody was completely challenging. And I was shocked, that I could have just gone in there and put my name down and people would be like, oh yeah, she's African, so I'm going to vote for her just because I'm African. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that there is opportunity out there to get engaged. It's a matter of us having that knowledge and knowing what our possibilities are, and actually harnessing those opportunities and putting action into those opportunities and making them happen.
We have 3 minutes to finish up here. Just to point to that, and I think it's important I think we need to move forward. Honestly, my view is that we need to move beyond these national things, whether it's Somali, Kenyan, to the collective being of the immigrant population. And point being, if you look at the raw data from the governor's office, there's clear indication today that the children who are under age of 10 and who belong to the group called minorities will be the majority within 10 years. So that means if you look at the African immigrants, generally speaking, in a household, we tend to have 1, 2, 3 children. And so if that's the case in 10 years' time, it is actually our children who are going to take some of these key positions. And so we need to be prepared so that within that period of time, really we should be able to compete for good jobs, not just based on our national origins. So Lydia, you've been fairly quiet, but a great contribution there. Do you mind making your closing statement to our viewers?
Dr. Okari, thanks so much for the opportunity. We as a Ugandan community really appreciate this platform, and thanks so much, Hudi, for the wonderful insight, for all the ideas that you've shared. And I'm sure that we'll have more conversations after this as we engage and try to make our community better. My final thought would be that if you want a better community, have a better home. If you want a better home, have better children. So when we start by engaging our communities just from the grassroots, by us doing better at home, then we are going to make sure that our communities, our kids are going to do better in school. And when our kids are doing better in school, they're going to be doing better in our communities. And as we are doing better in our communities, as the cities also get better, and then it goes on and it goes on. So as a community, we need each other. We need each other more than ever. When we are talking about the inequalities and the injustices that are happening, like Hude say, that it's not happening to just African Americans. It's happening to us because of the colors of our skin. Because tomorrow it may be my son who is born here and I've raised him right and everything is going well, and goes out there and they don't know the difference between that, and they will discriminate against him for reasons because of his color. So we need more than ever these conversations, these platforms. We need to be each other's keeper, each other's protectors, so that we can have a better support group network. We network between communities, we network between across the line, so that if we are stronger together, we are going to be able to fight injustices and to grow and develop better as a community. So we really, really encourage all the members in different communities, do not stand on the sideline. We need all hands on deck. We need your voices. We need your ideas. We need your resources. We need your skills in order to grow our community to be a better community, a stronger community, as an immigrant community, not as a Ugandan community, but as an immigrant community in the diaspora. We need each and every one of us to come together and put in a little bit, and together we'll be a stronger community.
couldn't put it any better. I can tell you, you carried the Ugandan flag in the very best way possible. It doesn't surprise. I've known you for 20 plus years. It didn't disappoint. Trust me, little sister. Closing statement, my little sister Lydia. Sorry, Older.
Yes. So once again, Dr. Okari, change starts with forums like this. So I want to apply to KDRTV for creating a platform where leaders can come and share ideas and really engage with the community, the immigrant community. I love Lydia's statement. We are not the Cameroonian community. We are not the Kenyan community, but the immigrant community. So I applaud you and your team for really creating this platform for that. So my closing statement would really echo what Lydia has said. You know, we will only succeed if we decide to come together and collaborate and share information and really, you know, engage ourselves in our communities, local, starting with our family units, all the way to the local, you know, offices and all the way to, you know, Washington, D.C. You know, this is nothing new. You know, we do have an example. You know, the Somali community has showed time and time again that this is possible. But can you imagine if the immigrant community decides that, hey, it's about time we, you know, we make a change here, a change that we really affect and impact our, you know, community, you know, from an economical, social, educational standpoint. And so it encouraged, to be honest, I'm excited because, you know, this is the right time and the right time for us to come together. And I think that the immigrant community is waking up. It's a giant that is finally realizing the power that we have, you know, so collaboration, you know, with each other. And I can't wait to connect with Lydia and Walter and the rest of the immigrant communities and come up with a way where, you know, we have this team who goes to the State House and says, hey, we're the immigrant community and we're here to demand, you know, change within our communities. And it's possible. It's just a matter of us deciding, hey, it's about that time. So, and as a young person who the community has entrusted in this role, you know, I'm excited to, you know, engage the young community, the young people within the immigrant community, because if you look at the young immigrant community, as Dr. Okari said, those are the people who are going to be holding these seats in the next 10, 15 years. You know, if the leadership now does not start engaging them and having them sit at the table, at the decision tables within our small, you know, community teams, and then expand that and have them bring those fresh ideas, you know, we can't look back and, you know, we can't look back 10 years from now and say, we wish we had that opportunity. This is the opportunity to do that. Dr. Okari, a while back ago, invited brilliant Kenyan, you know, youths who are doing great things. For example, the former president of the U of M, you know, is this brilliant young lady from the Kenyan community who is doing great things. You know, so we do have the resources and the power within our immigrant community to really make that effective change. It's a matter of us getting organized. It's a matter of us collaborating and then sharing that knowledge and not being afraid of, if I share this, you know, it's going to benefit that community more than our community. We have to get rid of that mentality. You know, I'm looking at grants right now. There's some grants that we won't get unless, you know, it's a collaboration between all of, you know, the immigrant community, you know, so sharing ideas and coming together and saying enough is enough will really get us to where we need to go. So once again, Dr. Okari, it's always a pleasure to be here. And I sincerely apologize for the technical difficulties that we had today.
By the way, you also made a very good case for Kenya. It doesn't surprise. We'll definitely have you back on at a later date. So, hey, listen, both of you panelists, ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Lydia, to start with you, as I said there, you carried the Ugandan flag well, and I think the Ugandans should be saying, yeah, fantastic, thank you. And Walter, thank you. And I think quite a number of friends from the Cameroon community are still watching on. I think he did a fantastic job. Thank you for letting him on and having him in the office. I'm sure we're going to work with him and leaders from the community in driving a very positive diaspora narrative. One more time again, thank you. Like what our commitment here at KDRTV is not just Kenyan staff. We want to try to reach every single nation that is represented here. So we're going to focus on the Tanzanians, Malawi, and South Africa, pretty much every country across Africa that is represented here in the diaspora. We're trying to make sure that we bring you on board. So if you know people, topics like Huda said, you want to come here and share your thoughts and perspective about what we're going through and how we can resolve those issues, we're far more than you're welcome to come on, and I would be happy to have you share those views. So again, panelists, thank you very much for being here tonight, and we'll talk to you after the show. And then for our viewers, thank you so much for letting it be on your smartphones, on your laptops, or your homes. We welcome you again on Sunday, Central Time. At 10 Central Time, we're going to have a very interesting conversation. We're going to start off at 10 o'clock. We're going to have one of the best world journalists. I think Elias Okari, who was a senior editor with the Nation Media Group. I think he's been awarded as, I think, one of the best sports journalists in the world for almost 7 years. He will be on the show at 10 Central Time. We'll be talking about the role of sports in socio-economic development and how diaspora can also commit to that. Following that, at 11 o'clock Central Time, we're going to have a very intense or candid conversation with the mayor of Anoka County, John Litchinu, will be on here, and he wants to talk to the diasporans, especially those also living in the county of Anoka. Is running to be the county commissioner. He's ready to come and engage with that. And I think that's a clear indication that most of those ones who are sitting in the tables of decision making are ready to engage with that. So we welcome you, watch, and if you have any questions, please send them to me ahead of time so that I can post those questions to him and many more who are going to come on. Following that, at exactly noon on Sunday, we're going to have two of the best African medical doctors here in the Twin Cities. That's Dr. Andrew Kirago, very senior doctor, and Dr. Edwin Bogongo, who are going to talk about COVID-19, how to prevent that, how to manage it, and how to treat it. So we're welcoming you all to tune on as we continue talking about this positive diaspora narrative. I'm sure there are so many challenges that we face as a people, but I think it's time we start talking about the positives. And as we do this, you won't be surprised to see how much we can do big things together. And I want to promise our viewers, or those who are diasporans here, that KDRTV will be your partner in this process. Again, thank you so much for allowing us to be on your smartphones, laptops, or homes. Have a good night, and we'll look forward to seeing you again 10 Central Time on Sunday. Good night.